Alrighty, it is time for probably my favorite things of this MLS match week kind of stuff, which is the power rankings. And there are some big changes in terms of the power rankings, in terms of where team goes in this rankings. And we're going to start in the 23rd, and the first big change, we got a new team in the bottom for this week. And that team is Philly, who is now in the bottom and dropped 2 spots from last week, and it shouldn't be very hard to kind of explain why Philly belong in the bottom right now. Well, actually, to be fair, I will say this. This next team alongside with Philly is kind of very close in terms of being near the bottom, and that next team is Chicago, who last week was the biggest winner, the biggest gainer of my power rankings. This week, they are the biggest loser, with dropping down 7 spots. And that can happen to you when you go from one week where you get a massive morale victory and a massive victory in this season to basically lay an egg against the Galaxy and basically returning to what Chicago is, which is a very bad team. And really, both of these teams, not only both of these teams struggle to score, but they also have let in goals too. Chicago, if it wasn't for like their first game of the season where they lost 4-3 against Sporting KC, this team have really struggled to score goals. Like, the only goal scorer for well, not Philly, but for Chicago is Nikolic. And unfortunately for Philly, their only goal scorer that they rely on is nobody, because nobody for Philly can score for them, and it has to be very depressed as a Union fan right now. And what is also more depressed is that Philly had so many chances to trying to score a goal and trying to potentially win a game, but they don't take advantage of those goal scoring chances because they think scoring goals in Philly and trying to putting away in their final chances is like trying to figure out geometry, or not even geometry, but advanced calculus, pretty much. But yeah, so both of these teams are in the bottom, with Philly in 23rd and Chicago in 22nd. And in 21st, this team dropped down 2 spots from last week, and that, of course, is Minnesota, who, of course, lost 3-2 against the Timbers. So remember how a couple of weeks ago where I put Minnesota all the way near the top because they got 2 wins in a row and looked like they were going to get their 3rd win in a row and try to make history? Yeah, that was good times, isn't it, Loons fan? But now you are back in reality, and that reality is just losing games, game after game, and for whatever reason, your team just decided to wake up in the last 10 minutes only to find out it was already too late. So that is pretty much what Minnesota is this season, kind of like in a nutshell a little bit. And in this game against Portland, they woke up in the last 10 minutes. They tried to get something out of it, but they just couldn't do it. They just fell short again. So they're in 21st, and in 20th, this is another team that were kind of like in dreamland a couple of weeks ago, but now falling back down. And that, of course, is Montreal, who is now down to 20th. I think they were as high as this 3rd row here, and really just back-to-back loss. First, they lose to the Refs. They got absolutely destroyed 4-0 in that game, and now they lost to the Red Bulls, who were coming off of a loss against Chivas. So, yeah, it's not good time for Montreal fans. And Montreal, goal scoring is another issue for them, and just like Chicago, where they only have one real goal scorer that they go forward to, Montreal also is the same case. Jason Vargas is literally just carrying this team in terms of goal scoring, and the Impact just does not have anybody else that can really just put the ball into the back of the net for them. But yeah, in 19th, and this team got their first win this week, finally, and that, of course, is Portland, who won 3-2 against the Loons of Minnesota and moved up 3 spots from this week. Certainly, this will really kind of be a little bit of a sigh of relief for Timbers fan, considering the fact that how frustrated that long road trip was to start off the season, and now finally they come back to Providence Park. They finally got their first win, and Giovanni Savarese finally gets his first win as the manager of the Timbers. Although it wasn't a very convincing win. It was especially near the end of the game. And I think that is probably the reason why I wouldn't move them a little bit higher, because at the end of this game, it kind of got iffy. And Portland is just a team that has been known for giving up late goals, like what they did in Orlando City. And it looked like it was going to happen again against Minnesota. It looked like they were going to give away all 3 points again, but fortunately they hold on, and yeah, they moved up 3 spots because of that. And in 18, this team moved down 5 spots despite the fact that they did drew, and this is probably the most spots I have dropped a team because of a draw, is the San Jose Earthquakes. And I'll tell you what, even though it was a draw, I said it in the review and also said it in my match vlog, it felt like a loss. It really felt like a loss with the way that the team performance was absolutely shocking from top to bottom. The midfield, the passing was just non-existent, and the defense was just once again sloppy again, giving the ball away in bad position to concede a goal and just getting absolutely burned by a very good player called Albert Elise on the wing area and not marking Manotas in the box area to get him a very easy tap in. So yeah, it was a shocking performance, and I don't know how we only earned a draw in that game. Next up, and this team was dead last week, but they moved up 6 spots because for somehow, in some ways, they got a win despite the fact that they were down to 10 men for the last 40 minutes of the game, is DC United, who got a 1-0 win against the Crew. And yeah, it was a very improbable win. I don't know how in the world DC United was able to pull it off, and the fact that the only goal in the game came in the first minute, and just able to hold on to that 1-0 lead, and then even more when they was able to hold on after they had a man sent off in the 50th minute. It was just unbelievable, and the fans certainly shown that right at the end of the game. They were cheering like they just won the MLS Cup or something like that. But yeah, DC United in 17th as they made up 6 spots from this week. And in 16th, this team moves up 4 spots from last week, and that of course is Colorado. So you kind of start to realize a little bit of a pattern already with some of these teams that used to be the worst team in the league, like DC United, and Colorado is kind of like moving up because of big wins. Well, that is exactly what happened this weekend. Colorado with a big 2-0 win against TFC. Now, granted, TFC was really playing a TFC 2 team. It's still a big victory for the Rapids, considering that, you know, there's not going to be a lot of time where you would think that Colorado would potentially get a victory against Toronto, when Toronto is just such a machine of a team. And even though they put just their reserve in this team, it's still a very good TFC kind of team. But Colorado able to beat them, and Colorado have shown signs this season that they can definitely go with the big boys, that they can compete against them. The problem for the Rapids is that they just give up so many late goals. And hell, if they would have won those games, they would have been right here. They would be right near the top 2 right now if they just could have won those games and could have not give up late goals like they have done so many times this season. But yeah, in 15th place, and boy does this team fall from grace, like I said in the match review, and that is Columbus, who is literally took a nosedive in these last couple of weeks, and they moved down 6 spots from this week. I think I only dropped like 4 spot or 3 spot from last week, but yeah, Columbus, it is just, they are just absolutely taking up down a nose. They're absolutely in a nosedive right now because back-to-back 1-0 losses. And this team is just, right now, they are just struggling to score lately. Like, the goal scoring that early in the season they sort of had is started to disappear. And they're kind of having the same problem as Philly right now in terms of how they're struggling to score goals, even though they created a lot of chances. And in this game against DC United, it was the case once again. Like, how in the world do you not at least get a draw or even a victory against a DC United team that was down to 10 men? Like, that is just incredible. And, like I said, Columbus has just, they're falling down. They're taking a really big tumble in the power rankings. And if they continue that, don't be surprised that they're going to be in near the bottom row. I mean, this bottom row right now is kind of a sad kind of row to be right now. Well, maybe besides Montreal. But yeah, Philly, Chicago, Minnesota, Portland are already near like the bottom part of their respective conference. And yeah, Columbus definitely do not want to join in that party if they keep losing in these next couple of weeks. And in 14th, this team dropped 3 spots from last week, and that, of course, is the very inconsistent Vancouver Whitecaps. Or I would like to call it the Vancouver Whitecaps that when Plan A does not work, they are going to lose. Because it's just that simple. Vancouver, they just don't have a Plan B. And it's quite ridiculous, the fact that the Whitecaps, throughout this coming into this season, that they need to have a Plan B this season because teams are just going to figure out their transitional kind of counter-attacking style of play this season. Consider they did it so much last season. It was their bread and butter, and now they're doing it the same thing. And the fact that teams have figured them out, like what happened in this game against LAFC, where teams are just happy to give them the ball because they know that they're not going to really threaten them, because that Plan B, which is the creative kind of play and trying to get something going, is just not working right now. And for the Whitecaps, they desperately need to come up with Plan B, and I guess Plan B might be getting Kai Kamara back. I think he probably is the big piece that they're just missing right now. But in 13th, this team moved down 1 spot, and I know fans are going to still be mad at me for this. And that, of course, is Seattle. So I've been getting fans that have been mad of me putting Seattle so high up. Consider they have 0 points coming into this week, and they finally got their first point against Sporting KC. It's really hard for me to move them so far down now because they got a draw against Sporting KC. Getting a draw against Sporting KC and getting it on the road is pretty impressive. And Seattle in this game, they actually played pretty well in this game. This is probably the best that they had played this season when they play against Sporting KC. And I can't really justify saying that they should be down there here. I mean, theoretically, I get why some people say they should be near here. Consider what they are in the standings and the total points that they have. But then again, this also goes back to what I say, that the power rankings is not just about that. It's about how you look at the overall team. Are they suffering from big injuries, or are they have to have another commitment to another competition, which is the CONCACAF Champions League? And so far that checkbox has been just put in Seattle Sounders throughout the season, and it's understandable why they are kind of like off to just such a start. And I think, as many people have rumored, Seattle needs to get a DP, most likely a striker DP, because they just don't have that kind of players right now. And it's going to be interesting to see, will they get it now, or will they wait for the World Cup to end this year? But in 12th place, this team moved up 1 spot despite getting a draw and that, of course, is Houston. Now, I had a debate of whether or not should I move Houston down because they couldn't take advantage of just one of the worst performances I've seen my Quakes team play. But at the same time, they get a draw on the road, and draw for Houston is almost like victory for them because they cannot win on the road. And so far this season, they have shown signs that they kind of started to change that, but the problem for Houston is that they just cannot finish the job. And this was the same case again, where for the second road game in a row, they concede a goal literally in the last 10 minutes of the game. In the 11th, this team moved down 3 spots from last week and didn't play this week, but they play in the midweek game, and that, of course, is RSL. So RSL, of course, playing the midweek game, and they lost 4-0 to NYCFC. And although, if you factor the fact that they had to travel a long way for a midweek game and the fact that the schedule have not been kind to RSL so far, it's still pretty embarrassing, the fact that RSL just got completely rolled over in that game. Like, they just gave no fight, no determination, no passion whatsoever in that game against NYCFC. And it felt like NYCFC basically just, they just come into the game and they kind of like act that one as a training session for them, because it was just so poor from RSL in that game. So that's why I moved them down 3 spots in that one. And in 10th place, this team moved down 2 spots. And that, of course, is the Revs, who finally lost their first game at home in 11 games. They had a long unbeaten streak at Gillette Stadium, but unfortunately it came to an end against Dallas. And I didn't think that they played very poorly against Dallas. They were kind of unlucky to not finish those chances, and some Revs fans might kind of say that they kind of got robbed right at the end of the game with that penalty kind of not given to them. But then again, I think that call, I have no problem with that not being a penalty, because it looks like that Dallas player that was trying to clear the ball away just accidentally kicked into one of the Revs player, and he was kind of like in the way of the ball. So I have no problem with that not being called as a penalty. I'm pretty sure a lot of Revs fans disagree with me, but let me know in the comments below, what do you think of that call. I think I kind of said the same thing about it. And speaking of Dallas, this team moves up 9 spots and are the biggest mover this week. And that, of course, is Dallas. So Dallas, 1, proved me wrong. And 2, I'm hoping that a lot of Dallas fans should be happy about this now, because I've been ranking you guys near the bottom part, when a lot of you say that why would you rank me at the bottom if we're still undefeated and we're like one of the 2 teams that is remain undefeated this season. Well, that's because you played 4 home games and you only got 6 points out of them, and the team that you've been facing is just so bad. But they go on the road, they play against a Revs team that is just unbeatable at home, and they ended their winning streak at home and get a impressive 1-0 win. So because of that, I of course will say that they kind of proved me wrong on that, and because they proved me wrong on the fact that that the first couple of games it looked like there was going to be problem for this team. They, of course, moved up 9 spots. And in 8th place, this team also moved up. This team moved up, I believe, 7 spots. So this was the second biggest mover. And that, of course, is LAFC, who bounced back after just a horrible 5-0 loss against Atlanta, and an even worse collapse against LA Galaxy in the LA Derby, also known as El Tráfico. They beat Vancouver 2-0. It's a great response for LAFC, and now going forward, let's see if LAFC can build on this and trying to forget what happened 2 weeks ago. Although one thing I'm worried about LAFC is that they're just too rely on Diego Rossi and Carlos Vela. And if one of those players goes down, then LAFC is going to be screwed. And I just have a feeling that if one of those players goes down, then LAFC could be an easy team to beat. They're not, even though they look like they're very good right now, there's two players that is clearly engineering this good run that LAFC has. And that, of course, is Vela and Rossi. And in 7th place, this team dropped down 4 spots or 3 spots from last week, and that, of course, is TFC. Now, TFC, they lose to Colorado, but they really didn't play like their first team in. They only play like their reserve team in this, and TFC, it's pretty clear that I don't think they're going to repeat as Supporter Shield champion. They're just so far behind in that race early on. I mean, like 10 points, I think 12 points behind, and it's going to be really hard for them to try to make it up now. I think their focus is clearly on that historic CCL final where they potentially could become the first team ever in MLS to win the CONCACAF Champions League, and I have no problem the fact that they want to rather focus on the historic moment than just focus on the league right now. I mean, because right now they already had done some historic thing by become the first team to win the treble last season, and now they could be the first team ever to win the Champions League and make more history. And in 6th place, this team moved up 1 spot last week, and that, of course, is the Galaxy. So the Galaxy bounced back from that 2-0 loss against Sporting KC and won 1-0. And Zlatan once again doing what he does, scoring an absolute beauty of a header for the only goal of the game, and certainly really pleased the 27,000 fans that show up just to see him play. And yeah, the Galaxy moves up into 6th place. There's still question in terms of the defense for the Galaxy. I think that area is still a bit of a problem, but at least if they're going up front and going forward, they look pretty decent, then I think that shouldn't, they can kind of forgive on the fact that the defense is a little bit of kind of iffy at times. But in 5th place, this team moved up 1 spot from last week, and that, of course, is the Red Bulls. So the Red Bulls crash out of CCL, and just as many people thought that they're going to get a big hangover from that CCL loss, they bounced back and won 3-1 against Montreal. And remember, these power rankings does not have anything direct into CCL in terms of the outcome. It might have some direct in terms of like a team putting out their reserve team just for CCL priority, like what TFC is, but it does not have any outcome in terms of the actual resort. So right now the Red Bulls are doing very well in the league, and considering that pretty much for the first 6 games, or pretty much for every single game throughout the season, the Red Bulls have not started their strongest squad, and yet they still can get some victory out of it. That just shows you how good the Red Bulls are in terms of their depth, and if they do get their full squad back, then this Red Bulls team is going to be very, very dangerous. And in 4th place, this team dropped down 2 spots from last week, and that, of course, is Sporting KC. So Sporting KC got a draw out of that, and the reason why they dropped down 2 spots is because team around them won, and they unfortunately did not get a win, so they have to, of course, drop down. It's pretty simple kind of logic. And in 3rd place, it's the team that was off to a slow start, and it looked like Jason Christ was about to get sacked. But now all of a sudden they completely turn it around because they started to get healthy again, and that is Orlando City. 3 win on the bounce, and now they are all the way up to, I believe, 4th in the table after they were kind of like lingering near the bottom of the table. And yeah, Orlando City, the Lions are roaring, and they are just in such a hot streak, and they can make it 4th in a row against my Quakes team, because I have a feeling the Quakes is gonna lose next week in Orlando City. Or actually, are they playing Orlando? I think they're playing Orlando next week, and then Columbus. I always get that mixed up, but yeah, Orlando City they are red hot right now, and it's good that they are red hot because this is supposed to be an all-in year for them. This is the year that they need to compete, and boy, are they competing right now with the way that they got 3 straight victory. And in second, this team is now in second after they were top last week, and that of course is Atlanta. And if Atlanta won today against NYCFC, they would be top of the standings. Atlanta unfortunately drew against NYCFC, and since NYCFC remains unbeaten and got a win last week, and I said that in my last week power rankings, if NYCFC can get a win against RSL and get a result against Atlanta, then they're going to return to the top of the power rankings, and they did exactly that. So yeah, NYCFC once again in the top of the rankings, and that is pretty much it for my power rankings. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the power rankings? Do you think, did I put some team too high? Did I put some team too low? Do you disagree with some of my power rankings and where I put the teams? And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time. I'll see you guys next week for another power rankings.